It started like something out of a bad movie. An elderly disabled veteran who had served his country with honor was suddenly told he had to leave his home. The reason? His local HOA claimed he was in violation of a few petty rules that many other residents had bent without consequence. But for some reason they singled him out. No compassion, no compromise, just a notice to vacate. He had lived in that house for over 2 decades, built a quiet life there after retiring from service. And now, in his most vulnerable years, he was being pushed out. The neighborhood whispered, some in disbelief, others in fear of the same happening to them. But no one expected what happened next. When his daughter got wind of what the HOA had done, she didn't just show up angry, she came with backup. And not just any backup. She had connections the HOA never saw coming. You see, her quiet, unassuming presence masked years of service in the Pentagon, and she knew exactly how to play the long game. What began as a cold-hearted eviction quickly turned into a standoff no one expected. But how far was she willing to go to make things right? And just how much power did she have behind her? Stick around, this is only the beginning. Her name was Rachel, and while most of the HOA board had never met her before, they quickly learned she wasn't someone to brush off. She had spent years behind closed doors in Washington, handling sensitive military operations and navigating political red tape most people couldn't even imagine. She wasn't loud, she wasn't flashy, but she was strategic. And when she saw what the HOA had done to her father, something in her snapped. Her dad, a retired Marine with limited mobility, had been quietly struggling with health issues the HOA never bothered to ask about. Instead of offering support, they slapped him with fines over things like the color of his porch light or a ramp that didn't match the neighborhood's aesthetic. To the HOA, it was about property value. To Rachel, it was personal. She started digging. Public records, emails, complaints from other residents, things that didn't add up. Turns out, her father wasn't the first to be targeted. There were whispers of favoritism, selective enforcement, maybe even kickbacks. But the HOA president, he just smiled through it all, confident no one could touch him. Rachel wasn't just trying to help her dad anymore. She was uncovering something bigger. And with the Pentagon quietly watching from a distance, the HOA had no idea how much trouble was heading their way. Rachel didn't come in swinging. She was smarter than that. She started attending HOA meetings, quiet at first, just watching. The board members laughed her off, treating her like just another upset homeowner. But behind the scenes, she was already making moves. She contacted other residents, especially the ones who had also been hit with odd violations or unexplained fees. Turns out, there were more than a few. Elderly folks, single parents, veterans, people the HOA assumed wouldn't push back. That's when the real story started to take shape. Rachel found a paper trail, selective enforcement, inconsistent fines, and even private emails between board members joking about cleaning up the neighborhood. It wasn't just about rule enforcement, it was about control. Appearances, power. The HOA president, Mr. Langford, had been running the board like his personal kingdom, and most people were too afraid or too tired to challenge him. But Rachel wasn't most people. Meanwhile, her father's health was slipping. The stress of losing his home, the place where he felt safe, was wearing him down. But he tried to stay strong for Rachel. He knew she was fighting not just for him, but for everyone being pushed around. The more Rachel uncovered, the more resistance she faced. People started getting anonymous notes. Cars were keyed. Security footage disappeared. Someone clearly wanted her to stop, but she wasn't going anywhere. Rachel knew things were coming to a head when she found a sealed envelope taped to her car windshield one morning. No name, no return address, just a single sheet of paper inside with a warning. Asterisk, back off before someone gets hurt. Asterisk, her hands shook, but not from fear, from anger. They were trying to intimidate her, and that meant she was getting close. She wasn't just exposing an abusive HOA anymore. She was unraveling a system built on silence and fear. She filed a police report, but nothing came of it. The officer who took her statement seemed nervous, like he'd dealt with this kind of thing before and knew how deep it could go. That's when Rachel decided it was time to use the connections she had been keeping quiet about. A call here, an email there, just enough to alert the right people without setting off alarms. And quietly, eyes from higher up began watching the neighborhood. Inside the HOA, things started to crack. One of the board members, a younger guy named Jason, pulled Rachel aside after a meeting. He looked scared, kept glancing over his shoulder. He told her there were files, records the HOA never wanted public. He didn't say much, but it was enough. Rachel now had a decision to make: push forward and risk everything, or step back and let them win. But she'd come too far. Something big was about to break, and no one in that neighborhood was ready for what was coming. Just when Rachel thought she had her next move lined up, everything shifted. Jason, the one board member who seemed ready to talk, suddenly vanished. No warning, no calls, nothing. His house went dark overnight, mailbox overflowing, car still in the driveway. Rachel knocked. No answer. She asked around, but neighbors got tight-lipped. Someone even told her Jason had left town suddenly, but the way they said it didn't sit right. It didn't feel like he left. It felt like he was removed. That's when Rachel knew this went deeper than HOA politics. She pulled security camera footage from a neighbor who still trusted her, an elderly widow who'd also been fined for unauthorized landscaping just for growing tomatoes. The footage showed two men, late at night, going to Jason's house. One of them matched a blurry photo she had seen in an old HOA event flyer, someone with close ties to Langford. But then came the second blow. Rachel got a notice from the HOA. Her father's VA medical ramp was now officially classified as a non-compliant structure. They were moving forward with fines, threats of liens. This wasn't just about rules anymore. It was war. She felt the pressure closing in, but something inside her stayed steady. She wasn't just dealing with local bullies now. She was circling something bigger, something that might shake the entire HOA system if it came to light, and someone didn't want that to happen. Rachel knew time was running out. Her father's health was getting worse, and the HOA had pushed things to the edge. But she had one last card to play. She compiled everything: emails, footage, testimonies from neighbors who finally found the courage to speak up, and handed it all over to a quiet but powerful contact she'd worked with during her time at the Pentagon. She didn't ask for favors. She presented it as a national concern: abuse of power, corruption, intimidation tactics targeting vulnerable people, including veterans. Within days, the pressure hit. Federal oversight was initiated. The HOA was served with subpoenas. Audits began, and the local news got a hold of the story. Cameras showed up at board meetings. Reporters asked questions Langford couldn't dodge. And just like that, the walls started crumbling. Several board members resigned, and Jason, who hadn't disappeared at all, but had been hiding under protection, came forward with documents that sealed the deal. Financial records showing misused HOA funds, under-the-table payments, even connections to shady developers who had been promised cleaned-up properties. Langford was removed, and the HOA was placed under temporary federal review. Rachel's father not only got to stay in his home, but was publicly honored for his service at a community event. The neighborhood was changing for the better. But as Rachel stood outside her dad's house, watching kids ride bikes past a street that once felt so hostile, a plain white envelope arrived in the mail. No return address. Inside was a single line: "You may have won here, but some things don't stay buried forever." She looked up, scanning the quiet street. The battle was over, but the war might not be. Rachel held the envelope for a long time before tucking it into her jacket. She wasn't surprised. In her world, wins didn't always come without shadows. But for now, her mission was complete. Her father was safe, the community had found its voice, and the HOA's grip had been broken. The new board was made up of residents who actually listened, people who cared more about neighbors than paint colors or mailbox styles. Rachel helped them draft new guidelines, fair and reasonable ones, especially protecting veterans, seniors, and people with disabilities. Jason, finally out of hiding, started speaking publicly about HOA corruption, helping other communities facing similar battles. His courage sparked a movement online. Stories from across the country flooded in, proving Rachel's fight wasn't just personal, it was bigger than their neighborhood. As for Rachel, she stayed close to her dad, keeping a quiet eye on things but ready if anything else came crawling out of the past. The warning in that letter, she didn't ignore it, but she didn't fear it either. In the end, the story wasn't just about an unfair eviction. It was about standing up, speaking out, and proving that no one, not even a powerful HOA, can silence the right person with the right cause.